Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Legal AI Foundations, Practical Use Cases for 2026. My name is Gabby McSweeney, I'm the Head of Marketing here at LegalFly and I'm joined by my colleague Jeroen de Rock, a Senior Account Manager. And LegalFly, for those of you who don't know, is an AI native workspace for in-house legal procurement and compliance teams. And it helps those teams manage tasks like contract review, drafting, due diligence, legal research, and we are the only platform to anonymise all sensitive data before any processing begins, making it the most secure solution on the market. But we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. For now, we are only a few weeks away from the start of a new year. And after all of the madness of end of year deals is over with, the new year is always a great time to reassess how things are going. What could make you a more efficient and successful legal team? How could you better support your stakeholders? And how can you embrace technology to help you do that? So what better time to be laying the foundations of legal AI in your organisation? With this webinar, we're going to specifically cover legal AI use cases with an aim to give you some real tangible examples of how you can either start or expand your AI usage. And we're going to start by giving an overview of legal AI use cases and then share some insights about some first seen insights about LegalFly and where have been the most popular use cases for legal AI that we've seen over the past year. We'll then do a deep dive into a few specific high impact use cases and demo those in the LegalFly platform. And then for the final part of the webinar today, we'll cover how you should actually think about preparing your team and an organisation to adopt AI. And throughout the time, we should have plenty of extra time at the end of the session for questions. So at any time over the course of today's webinar, you should see a Q&A box on your screen. Feel free to post any question in the Q&A box and we'll try to pick up as many of those as possible at the end of the session today. So let's dive in. What do we actually mean by legal AI use cases? Well, I would define this as specific tasks or workflows where AI can be applied to save time, increase consistency, and or reduce risk. And what you can see on the screen at the moment is a bit of a visualization of how we see the LegalFly platform. And we generally split those use cases or specific agents in our case, in terms of the platform, into three different buckets. So first of all, you've got contracting, and that is, obviously, as many of you will know, a large bulk of the role as an in-house counsel. So inside that category, you'd see things like AI contract review and redlining, contract drafting, either from scratch or more commonly from templates. And then you've also got a comparison or comparing two contracts together. And then you've got the second bucket of compliance. And that could be things like making compliance checks on documents or contracts, or extracting information from multiple documents at once. It could also be things like understanding upcoming regulatory and legislative changes and how they impact your business. And within LegalFly, that's our legal radar. And then the final bucket we have is more related to research. So, for example, in LegalFly, Discovery is the agent that we have that is most similar to legally trained ChatGPT. You can ask questions, upload documents, and then ask questions about the documents, and you can also ask that agent to write you letters, draft updates to stakeholders, and so on. And a key difference between legal AI and more generalist AI is that you have all of that jurisdictional knowledge and integrations with legal publishers built in. So I'm really excited today to bring you some insight into how we've seen clients in LegalFly getting the most use and value out of the platform, and which use cases have proven to be the most popular. So first of all, what are the most used agents in LegalFly? Well, at the top of the list, we've got Discovery as the most popular agent for LegalFly. And that absolutely makes sense. It's a really simple workflow that people are familiar with. So many people are using ChatGPT in their personal lives now that, just putting in a question or a prompt to an agent like Discovery feels really familiar. Perhaps one that is less expected to be at the top of the list, and an agent that I haven't mentioned so far today, is the translation agent. So within Legalfly, you can translate not only text or Word documents, but PDFs, PowerPoints into around 80 different languages. And you can also translate them anonymized for maximum privacy. And a great thing is that when you're translating things like PDFs or PowerPoint, all of your formatting stays intact. And the fact that this is so popular is a real sign of how common it is for legal teams to be having to operate across borders and across jurisdictions. And now third on the list is our contract review agent. It's also extremely popular, as you would imagine, given it's such a common workflow for in-house teams. And then we also have custom agents there. So that's one of the really powerful things about Legalfly, is that you actually have the ability to create your own create your own agent. Say if you want AI to consistently build reports in a certain format or draft memos in a certain way, perform checks, and we have a solutions engineering team that actually work with you to build these and set them up for you. Okay, so let's go one level deeper and try and give you a bit of inspiration about how you might actually use legal AI. So you can see on here, on screen, we've got some of our most common document types that we see in Legalfly. And I must say, I'm not hugely surprised to see service agreements right up at the top there, knowing the volume that comes through the legal department and the repetitive nature. It absolutely makes sense as an area to automate. But some of these, I think, are perhaps ones that we might not have maybe expected to be right at the top of the list, like construction contracts, commercial rental agreements, and so on. So one level deeper, we've got a little bit of an insight into how teams are actually using our Discovery agent and what types of tasks they're choosing to automate. And I think really, really interesting is that one of the aspects at the top of the list there is dispute resolution. So, and particularly in there, we see things like drafting letters to say that there's been a breach of contract or confidentiality or some kind of payment dispute. Things like creating court filings would be within that category. Second on the list for most popular use cases of our Discovery agent, we have legal Q&A and document analysis. So that is the typical use case. Ask a question, use it to do research, use it to summarize particular articles, documents, pieces of legislation. And then we have contracts, employment, and HR and corporate governance. So contracts, really interesting to note here is that even though we have kind of some really specific AI agents for contract review and drafting, a lot of people, when they're beginning with legal AI, will start with really simple reviews using the Discovery agent. They will upload a contract and just ask it to perform a quick legal checks or ask specific questions. Is it compliant with GDPR? Is there X, Y, and Z clause in there? And people are already getting a lot of value out of that very easily. And then the final two on there, we've got employment, so that would be things like drafting policies, letters of termination, responding to issues, and then corporate governance, so board minutes, drafting memos to stakeholders, that sort of thing. So hopefully now you're already starting to think about your own organisation, about potential use cases you could try. But how should you think about picking the right one to start with? So what I would always do in this case, and what we recommend to clients, is to start by making a list of the types of tasks that you are doing most frequently and take up meaningful time. The more you regularly do a task, the more worth the effort it is to automate and make that more efficient with AI. You also want to think about the value associated with that task. For example, if a piece of work, if doing a piece of work faster is critical to helping deals move faster or reducing reliance on external counsel, that can be a very good one to choose, as it's easy to demonstrate ROI to your business stakeholders. And then the final lens that I would put on this when you're thinking about where to start is thinking about how easy it's going to be to implement. So if you're thinking about what type of contract to start with for contract review, it's good to pick one where you already have an idea of your set positions, there's low ambiguity, and that way it's going to be much easier to deliver quick, visible wins that's going to help you build momentum around legal AI. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jeroen, and he is going to go one level deeper again and start to give an intro into the use cases that we're going to demo today.
All right, great. Thanks, Gabby. So first one is dispute resolution letters, because they are a classic time drain. They're detailed, repetitive, and they require also a clear legal basis with reference to evidence. And across IP issues, defective goods, or confidentiality breaches, a 2,000-person organization may produce between 6 and 20 of these each month, typically taking between 1 hour up to 4 hours each. And with LegalFly, teams get a structured first draft that already includes the required legal grounds, the evidence, and also the organization's own templates and drafting standards. Legal simply refines and approves it. The impact is significant. Drafting time drops from up to 4 hours to around 30 minutes, and outputs become consistent and complete, and legal teams can focus on higher value work. Sharing my screen. So now we are in the Discovery agent on legalfly.com, and we want to actually draft a formal notice of default letter of breach for a construction project. Now, I can just add in here the information, but we also just added the prompt library. So I just want to click on this one, and then it will help insert all this information within this prompt. And then the only thing I need to do is add in the contract. So, and then you see, of course, what I'm asking here is to really have to draft a notice, a letter of breach for a construction company. And then that's actually helping me a lot with winning time in that sense. So I just click and go ahead, and then the Discovery agent will first of all do an analysis of the question, and then identifying, of course, the key documents, provisions, recitals, and so on. So that's only limited to the documentation that I added to it, and then it will assemble a clear response that will always be cross-checked. And as you can see here, you can always consult the reasoning behind it, where it's being cross-checked of the information. And then here you see the draft email of the notice, so the letter of breach. And then you see how it's being organized. Everything is being mentioned in it. And then also, for example, the amount, 15,000 per month. And then it's all the information is in there. If you go all the way down, you can just click to download it to Word, and then you can actually go ahead and open it and continue adjusting it to your liking. Gabby, up to you.
Perfect, thank you, Jeroen. I always think it's so impressive to see how LegalFly references the different parts of the contract effectively, which would take you quite a long time to do that yourself. So the next high impact use case that we're going to deep dive on is reviewing data processing agreements. So another, alongside service agreements, is a super common type of agreement that comes across legal counsel's desk, and typically is you're always looking for the same terms. So what you can actually do with LegalFly is create a playbook, or use one of LegalFly's standard playbooks that specifically reviews those areas with your standards and preferred clauses built in. And that way you can actually let the business departments run the first pass of reviews and only escalate to legal if LegalFly flags an issue. And this is something personally in my own role that's been so useful to me, and it helped me feel confident running that first pass review on marketing contracts, for example. And based on our benchmarks, we see our clients save between 50 and 80% of the typical time it takes them to do a review. So imagine if you have around 50 agreements among your team per month, taking around 2 hours each. That could be a saving of 50 to 80 hours per month. So now I'll hand back to Jeroen and he'll walk us through this use case.
Right, great. So for this use case, we're diving straight into Word because we also have our Word add-in. In this example, whether it's an MSA or DPA, let's say for this example, we're taking a DPA that we receive this as an external software provider, for example, LegalFly, and we would be signing a DPA before you could use the software, for example. And then you want to review this against your own policies to also surface the risk and make sure that it's done instantly and you get clear suggestions and redrafting without ever leaving Word. So that's actually helping a lot. On the right hand side, you see here the the add-in of Word. We go to the review section of the review agent, and then the first thing you can choose is which perspective are you on what side of the table are you. Of course, if you would have 5 parties involved, you would see 6 of them in total because you always have this neutral stance as well. The document type is always recognized automatically. This is a DPA correctly identified. Now, why is it important that it's recognizing this automatically? Is because we also created playbooks together with renowned law firms. We created these playbooks for more than 150 document types, and this is both on the business side but also on the legal checks. Another part is, of course, the language and the jurisdiction that is being recognized automatically. Now, for this one, I would just say, let's go for the legal checks. And as you can see here, what Gabby also mentioned already, you can add in your own playbook, which could be to your own liking. So we start the review process now, where the playbook will go through all the different topics that we identified that we want the review agent to check this DPA on. And then it will go through the whole document, checking each of these individual items. Now, you can create your own custom playbook. So the way we work together with a lot of our customers is we have these playbooks out of the box. We hand them over to you. You can see, okay, these are things that I like, that I like less, or more important, less important, because we see, of course, changes, differences between industries, but also you might have your own checklist internally or a golden contract standard that you want to implement. And this is actually how we are organized with our different customers, and this is always helping you to reiterate and make this even better over time. Apart from the playbook itself, we also always identify any additional anomalies. So you see here, this is the playbook that we checked the whole document on the legal checks, but we also have anomalies. This could be now, of course, makes sense, there should be an annex that needs to be added in, or could be, for example, key processing details in the main body that are left as placeholders. This totally makes sense because we want to insert information in here, so that's so it would be becoming a complete, correct document. Then, if you go to the legal checks, this is ordered from major issue to minor issue and other checks that it has performed. But of course, you can choose how to do it. From a playbook order, could be risk level, but also the document sequence. We also have customers that like to do their own custom playbook, where they identified first, I want to check this, then that, for example, on confidentiality or liability, and then go through the document to add hand. To really go through the whole review process is you can actually go through the different major issues that are identified, and then you would just click and see here, okay, missing specifications of types of personal data and categories, for example, and then you can see more information of how the AI has done performed its check on this document. You can always click on explain to have more information to interact with the AI on this topic, and then you can actually ask more questions in here. But to go back to this one, you also have the other option of discover. Now, discover our pre-populated questions that will help you guide through this clause, for example, or this major issue, to actually say, okay, can you provide a detailed list of the specific types, for example, and then it would actually give you this as an example. You can look to insert it. The most powerful capability of the word add-in, I think, is in terms of the suggested redraft, where it's now suggesting to actually put this information in. And then, of course, you can always click to edit, but you can always just click to apply, where you have the track changes and also the information as a comment. This always comes in handy when you have done some negotiations, and normally you don't revisit a document or a contract every other week, but it's only when an issue pops up after a few months or a few years, and then you can always go back to understand how the language was interpreted or how you came to a concession or an agreement with the other party. Another example I could give is in here. So you have different suggested redrafts. So what the way we are organized as well is in terms of the different topics. So it's combining the two different instances throughout the document, where you can actually go through to see, okay, where in the document is it then located, to see, to actually apply the redraft on both instances. I think that's definitely powerful, so you don't have to go through the whole document to double check. I think that's covering the most important part from our end on this one, so you can actually help have this information added in, and then always go in this information. What you always can do is go and download all this information, so you have that also in a track record with track changes. Over to you, Gabby.
So, Jeroen, hopefully you can now see this final use case that I think you're going to talk us through, which is completing RFI or due diligence questionnaires.
Yes, correct. So that's definitely another high impact use case, I would say, is anything related to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs, because they're time intensive, they're high volume, and also often quite some technical complexity related to it, especially for larger projects. And also they're very often strategically important to win business, for example. However, the success rate is very unpredictable, and the documentation burden is quite huge. The way Legalfy tackles this with this custom AI agent is by generating a strong first draft of responses, drawing exclusively from the historic questionnaires that you have and the created internal documentation. It systematically analyzes each question, ensures consistent and accurate answers, and enriches every response with precise source citations. I think that's also definitely very critical, important to know. Because the AI agent is operating within a closed, controlled knowledge ecosystem, it also reduces the risk of, for example, inadvertently sharing information you shouldn't. And the impact is quite significant. The drafting time is reduced by about 60%, going roughly from hundreds of hours, depending of how many RFPs and RFQs you might be having. While the team is still be able to deliver more consistent, more defensible, and also more compliant responses. I would say, let's dive into the demo. So in here we have an example RFI. Of course, we use this internal as well, but we have a demo version of our RFI agent in that sense. So think of the last time your team had a complex security or compliance questionnaire from a major client, and pages of highly technical questions, each demanding precise answers, and every response needs to be grounded. I think that's definitely important to stress, that it needs to be grounded in your own internal policies, and no assumptions, no external interpretations, and no room for error. The only thing I need to do from my side is add the document. So here we have the security due diligence questionnaire, and then I click on this is a conversation starter. Right? However, we can help you with this, creating this. Then I just need to click on this one, and then the whole document will be reviewed with this custom agent, and then you will see it will go through all the internal policies, answering each question systematically, citing every source, and flagging anything we cannot, for example, substantiate. And you see here the response is coming in. And then you can click on this one to see the source that is referring it to. So instead of manually cross-checking anything, you get a fully structured, source-cited response, which is accurate, compliant, and aligned with your internal standards. So this whole quite a lengthy document, of course, that is being answered throughout the answer that we're getting. But as you can see here, the way it's organized with all the different sections, the different headers, the information, and it's referring to the correct references. The whole references, you can always download itself specifically. And if, for example, I were to ask here, now make this a table format, then you would also be able to export it into a spreadsheet of Excel. Over to you, Gabby.
Perfect. So thank you so much for those demos, Jeroen. We are coming on to the last part of our webinar today. Hopefully you should also already have some inspiration and ideas for potential use cases for AI. This part is going to be covering how to ensure it actually happens. How do you get started and start to build momentum around AI? And we've got just a few tips here that were covered in our latest report, the AI Ready GC, where we interviewed leading GCs who are already using AI. And off the back of their experience and recommendations, we put together a 10-step plan to help you get you and your team AI ready. So first of all, if you're really serious about making AI work in your organization, you need to make it someone's job. Appoint someone in your team as an AI champion, and it helps, of course, if they are naturally interested in technology and open to new ways of working. It shouldn't feel like it's just an extra piece of workload for them. Try to allocate them, say, half a day a week to actually allocate to AI-related projects and clearly define their mandate. For example, it could be a mandate around documenting prompts, or testing new tools, or identifying use cases, and then you should make sure that they report on their learnings on a monthly basis. So secondly, at the start of your journey with AI, make sure you identify the team's comfort levels and readiness for AI. It could be with a very short survey, for example. Not everyone is going to be an early adopter of AI, and that's absolutely fine. It's good to be able to surface objections so that you can address them early and not kind of create more resistance to change by pushing people too far too quickly, or maybe pushing the wrong people in your team. The third tip is to integrate AI proficiency into objectives where it makes sense. So what doesn't get measured doesn't usually get done. So this is a really simple way to build accountability around progress with AI. It's important to reward experimentation as well, even if you don't always get top results from those experiments. And then one thing that can be really useful when we see teams starting to use AI is to have a simple exercise of evaluating how you're using your time currently, or how you spend an average week. Take a look back at your diary or pieces of work that you've delivered. What percentage of your time did you spend on what you'd consider strategic work versus what percentage was operational or tactical? And if you're the head of a team and more than 25% of your time, for example, is spent on those operational tasks, it can really help you to paint a picture of what could change with your day-to-day if you were better able to leverage AI. And then finally, one common mistake that we see teams make with AI is trying to run before they can walk. If you're starting with AI, just choose one or two high-impact use cases to pilot first. Make a success of those before moving on to others. And that's going to be so important, as I said, as building that momentum, showing positive results to others, getting your team on board. And you can see more of those recommendations and the interviews that led to those recommendations in our AI Ready GC report, which you can download there. So that is about it for today. We have had lots of questions through. But first of all, if you are interested in keeping up to date with our future webinars and tips on using AI, please do make sure you follow us on LinkedIn. And if you like what you've heard today and you are ready to start on that journey with AI, you can book in a demo directly with this QR code on screen now. Without further ado, let's go into our Q&A session today. So we will start with a question here saying, which LLM does the discovery agent use? And I'll pass that one over to you, Jeroen.
Yeah, that's a great question. We're LLM agnostic because we like to use the different models that the LLMs are able to give us, depending on the performance, the speed, and that's the context window and so on, all different parameters that we're checking and benchmarking daily. We're using, of course, the largest ones, the most familiar ones, so OpenAI, ChatGPT, we've got Claude, we've got Gemini from Google, DeepSeek, and Mistral.
Perfect. And we have a question here mentioning the legal sources available in LegalFly, and I'm happy to take this one. So the question was, is the AI utilising Westlaw or something along those lines? So at the moment, there's kind of two different types of kind of legal knowledge built into LegalFly. So within our jurisdictional collections, and we have around 35 jurisdictions at the moment available, but we're adding new ones all the time, we have all of the official sources of legislation and regulation there. And actually within our discovery agent, and you sharing, you may be sharing your screen. Jeroen, I'll hand over to you to
I thought that might help you as well, Gabby. I think it's a great question, indeed. So on the one hand side, so this is within discovery. You can always choose to search the web or not, but you can always leverage the knowledge collections. And as Gabby was explaining, we have different knowledge collections that are supporting the discovery agent in this sense. And in the first place, we got partnership collections, for example, from Council in the UK, but others are also coming. I cannot disclose more information on that one, but this is a way to leverage external sources from legal publishers that would be then answered in that sense. Your own collections, this could be, for example, on GDPR that you want to leverage this information, and then you can go through all the documentations that you add into it. This could be internal documentation, could be PDFs, spreadsheets, but also a website, for example, that you would like to have as a source that you would like to leverage within your own specific collection. Depending on how your organization is organized, this could be per team, could also organizational wide.
And Jeroen, maybe while you're there, you can also just scroll down on the document and show a little bit of a selection of the jurisdictions. We've had one question here saying which legal jurisdiction filters are built into LegalFly. So we won't go through all 35, but maybe you can just scroll down your screen.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And here you can see, for example, for England and Wales, these are the sources that we're leveraging. You can choose to only use these or to automatically let the AI choose these. But of course, you have quite some jurisdictions that we're supporting today. And many more to come.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So we've got two similar questions up next around the what we can produce with the review agent. So one here from John Glover. Besides redline Word documents, many industrial customers won't negotiate or want to negotiate terms in an Excel format. Is this feature available? And then we've also got one that is similar, saying often suppliers not likely to accept amendments. Does the agent also produce a report of key issues the business client so that they can consider the risk but not necessarily amend the DPA? And that absolutely is available. So we have a Excel report download which gives you a list of the issues It describes the issues, it ranks them and says if they are major or minor issue, and it will give you a summary of the amend suggested there as well, and explainability. So that one is really great. If you do decide just to accept the risk, you can keep that document as a record of the risk that you have accepted. Okay, so in the next one, I will pass over to Jeroen. Please could you provide more details on the how the anonymization is implemented from data protection perspective? Specifically, is the anonymization handled by the LLM AI model, or is it through a separate process?
Yeah, great question. It is a separate process, and I think that's indeed what Gabby mentioned already. This is also for us a standard way of working. Anything gets anonymized, or rather pseudonymized. For example, you have party A, party B, location A, location B, and then this pseudonymized or anonymized information content is only then being shared with the LLM in the background. So it's definitely a separate process that helps to secure your information, because we are into a legal industry, so the legal sector. So it's definitely something we want to avoid at all times, at all costs, that the LLM would be able to have all this personal information to its.
And yes, and we've got another one along similar lines as well, around ensuring the confidentiality and data protection uploaded, and specifically asking around the server of such a database. And it's worth maybe mentioning there that we do have deployment options around keeping that anonymization engine and capabilities on premise, deploying it on premise, so that in fact that data never leaves your premises as well. And that's what has made Legalfly quite popular, say with governments that we work with, big banks, and also in the GCC region, where there are very, very strict laws around data protection and where you can host your data. We have another question here from Carlos, which I'll hand over to you, Jeroen. Are the RFI agents available?
Yes. So in that sense, we are happy to help you with your own. Of course, this will be the way we can help you is building the custom agent with the prompting, and that's all included within your Legalfly subscription. Is we have a customer success team supporting on this, and also a solution engineering team that might help out on certain complex parts. But this is definitely where we definitely excel in as an organization, is making sure how to leverage our knowledge into your own specific process.
So another question coming in here from Ben Wooten. You mentioned that you referenced legal publishers. Which publishers do you allow access to? So at the moment we have live from Counsel, which is barrister written advice, specifically focused on the UK market, which is available today, but we are in the process of building out additional legal publisher integrations as well. And then final question here, which I'll pass to you, Jeroen. Would Legalfly services work effectively in my jurisdiction? I am in Southern Africa, in the Kingdom of Lesotho.
That's a great question, How. So at this point, we're not officially supporting Southern Africa as a country, as a jurisdiction. However, the way it works is that we have a RAG system that is able to do legal AI work on any jurisdiction worldwide. Now, then it would be able to consult sources on the industry, on the internet to leverage where there would be a level, an understanding or an allocation of how credible is a source that would be taken into account by the LLM. And this is actually how this would be working for you. So we're currently not officially supporting yet the jurisdiction. However, you would be able to leverage, and I would actually invite you just to try it out together and see what's the result.
Perfect. One final question that I will hand over to you, Jeroen, and then I think we will probably have to leave it there. But we will make sure that any questions we don't get to answer, we will come back to you over email. So we have one here. Could you share some more words on how Legalfly has compiled standard playbooks? Are these industry specific? If none of these are relevant, how to come to a playbook that really enhances the use case for a customer?
Yeah, great question. So the current playbooks, standard playbooks, we got business perspective and legal checks. These were created together with renowned law firms. We also have legal people with legal background, of course, as well within Legalfly. It is indeed, like you mentioned, it's not. It needs to be applicable to different industries. So this is actually how I see it. It's out of the box. It's definitely already 60 to 80% good. What I see actually between almost 80% good out of the box. But of course, depending on the industry, we would like to prioritize or emphasize on certain things to check more specifically. And then not just on an industry level, but also on each individual company's checklist and way of working.
Yes, and I think it's the way that we've fashioned those at the moment are on that document type. So they are based on the document type. But as we said, customizing playbooks, building your own playbooks is a massive part of what our clients do in Legalfly and also what our solutions engineering team help you to do. So we've in fact just released a bunch of new features to make building your own playbooks much, much simpler. So you can just take your golden contract and it will, of your preferred positions, how you like to see a contract, and then Legalfly can actually start to build a playbook for you based on those positions that you have in your document. So absolutely the process of tailoring playbooks to your standards, to your policies is something that you learn and you get support with as part of your Legalfly onboarding. So with that, we will leave it there, and all that remains is to say thank you so much for joining today's webinar. We will send everyone a recording of this webinar within the next 24 hours. And other than that, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you on another webinar soon.